Well, we've been working on this exhibition for the best part of 18 months. It really emanated from meeting David Boyd Haycock, who has helped to curate the exhibition and contributed the wonderful text to the catalogue. It's 34 works on paper, many of which have not been seen for many years because they're from private collections.
Paul Nash was one of the most important British artists of the 20th century.
The exhibition we're mounting at the gallery begins on the 8th of October and runs until the 22nd of November. We're focusing on his works on paper, of which we have 34 examples, spanning the period of his life from 1910 to the end of his life in 1946. Throughout this period, you see the development of Nash's work.
Paul Nash is an important artist, an important British artist, for the way that he attempted to combine a tradition of English painting. He was a lover of Blake, of Rossetti, Samuel Palmer. The idea of an English painter painting subtle watercolours, with the modern movement, with vorticism, with futurism, a movement that he rejected when it first appeared. But on seeing the Western Front in 1917, he knew that he had to combine the modern with the traditional. And he did that to a remarkable extent in his landscapes of the Western Front. He started his career as an artist at the Slade, where he was in the amazing group of students that included Stanley Spencer and Richard Nevinson and Mark Gertler. When the war broke out in the summer of 1914, Nash was making a name for himself for his subtle watercolours of English country gardens and trees and landscapes. He was an infantry officer, but he had the chance to paint. And he sent home paintings from the front. And just before the big push of 1917, he fell in a trench and broke a rib and was sent home. And that quite probably saved his life. And he exhibited his work in London. And he was recruited as an official war artist. And went out again in the latter part of 1917 and was horrified by what he saw in the Ypres salient. Nash painted at the front in watercolour. He was getting as close to the front as he possibly could to paint. His wife said that he was probably at more risk of being killed as an official war artist than he'd been as a second lieutenant in the infantry.
The glorification of war was really what the War Artists Committee were expecting the artists that they officially appointed to represent. But Nash, having experienced the horrors of the trenches, came back with something very different.
When Nash showed his war watercolours and his first oil paintings in 1918, the Times critic remarked that they might be used as propaganda in a league for peace. The mangling of the earth, the destruction of the landscape, and obviously the soldiers fighting through this wasteland. He couldn't portray really the soldier. He was never talented as a painter, drawer of people. He was a lover of landscape, and he used the landscape, the destruction of the landscape, as a metaphor. Through the 1930s and into the 1940s, it was clear that Nash was not going to live long. He had a heart problem, a bronchial problem. His wife suggested that it was the effect of gas inhaled on the Western Front in the winter of 1917. You get a sense of that in Nash's work, the sense in the latter works that he's not going to live long. But what he tried to do was to combine himself, his work as an English painter, with the modern movement. Nash saw Roger Fry's exhibition of post-impressionism in 1910. He said at first it didn't have much an impact on him, but by the time of the war and the late war works, you see how the war had made him realise that modernism was the necessary form for painting this horrific scene.
This remarkable collection of watercolours by Paul Nash certainly represents a unique opportunity for collectors to view and acquire some of the best works available on the market today. We have over 15 works for sale, many of which won't have been seen on the open market for several decades at least.